Welcome back to another rendition of Amsterdam Talk. Of course, I'll be your host, Broad. And today, I went and got some friends of mine, my childhood friends. Miss Lauren went to elementary school with me. Miss Tiara went to high school with me, and Lauren went to high school with me too. So we all went to high school together. This is a whole Dunbar thing in the building tonight. How y'all doing?
We're
Hey, we're
good.
good.
Oh man, thank y'all definitely for coming on. Happy Social Workers Month.
Thank you.
Definitely
Thank
had
you.
bring that to the forefront at the beginning. But tell us a little bit about yourselves before we start.
Well, my name is Lauren Capel. And as the Rod said, I have known him from a long time ago. I was at his Ninja Turtle party in the third grade.
Oh, you
So
ain't
we
got to
go
bring that
back a
up.
long way. But I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've been in the field for about 13, 14 years now. I love what I do. I have a consultant agency along with Miss Tiara, who will be introducing herself. And so we come on platforms like this with just sharing knowledge and dropping some gems about mental health and wellness. We also support behavior health organizations with some strategic planning. We help grow and do program development for behavior health organizations. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
And then I'm Tiara sitting on Diggs. I'm the second half of Lauren Capel, Keys of Hope Consultants. I too went to school with Mr. Rod. And so it's a great thing to be here to be able to connect with him in this space as adults. But a little bit about myself, I've been in the field for 19 years. I work for the school system. I'm also a college professor at the University of Maryland School of Social Work. And then, yeah, like I said, we have Keys of Hope Consultants where we support various different businesses, agencies around mental health and wellness. And then we also just come on different platforms just to educate people, our people, all types of people, but specifically sometimes our people for sure. And so, yeah, we're glad to be here. I'm glad to be here.
And we
Um,
recognize this is HBCU, and we are both HBCU graduates. So
Yes.
I am honored to be here and talk to my fellow HBCU members, alumni, and students.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, one thing first and foremost, Lauren, you ain't had to bring up about the Ninja Turtle party.
It was a fun party. I mean, he was kids. It was
if
hot back in the day.
if if I'd have known that, I would have brought the pictures up.
Oh no.
I, I chose not to. I didn't know that was going to go that well. But
Me
one thing
either.
for certain, I am going to say, since I know you went to Howard, so I got some people that say that's not the real HU, but I won't get into that at all.
Oh, so you want to come back at me about that?
No,
Because
no, 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 no,
no,
no,
HU
no.
is the real HU. We were not a Hampton Institute initially. We have always been HU. So I'm gonna rest that case right there.
Uh-oh.
I mean, I didn't go to Hampton or Howard. I went to Maryland Shore, so I mean, it is what it is. But definitely want to get into the things that you've been doing. Since I've known y'all for a long time, but I definitely want to know what's been going on with Keys of Hope Consulting LLC. So, what's been going on in that world?
We've been really busy since the new year. Things have been really good. We do like a lot of training, like we said, for organizations, some big organizations who are trying to be more trauma informed. Like I said, we've definitely been speaking on a lot of different platforms, talking to many different people who are just real interested in mental health, wellness, self care. Like I said, trauma is a big thing now. People recognizing trauma as breaking down the stigma of trauma, especially in the Black community. So that's pretty much what we've been doing since January 1. We've hit the ground rolling and yeah, we continue to
And
roll.
yeah, even before then, we've been doing a lot. We are participating on a Jamaica task force. We did some presentations in Jamaica. We have
Hmm.
some things coming up with some Jamaica clergy. We've done conferences. So, yes, we've had a mental health empowerment series that we've done. We've collaborated with NAMI. So, again, from a training perspective, a lot of people are tapping into mental health. As you are aware, the trauma informed city has finally rolled out in Baltimore City. And so they have a trauma task force. So you have more organizations trying to be trauma informed. Where we are is not just only training about trauma, but we're trying to support organizations with implementation. It's one thing to be trauma informed, it's one thing to have training, but what is training without application? And so what we're doing in our platforms and even in the services that we provide technical assistance and have been providing technical assistance about what does this look like. So we developed a structure and a framework in helping organizations to implement trauma into everything that they do. From the time whoever is serving people need to understand this and know how to implement it and how it should look in their service. So that's what we've been doing. It's been quite exciting and it keeps us busy, but it's needed, it's necessary.
Yes. I seen, I mean, I follow both of y'all on, on social media, and I've seen y'all been very, very busy. So thank y'all for coming in here, taking out time out your busy schedule to come chill with me, old pal, tonight. Because I know y'all got something to do tomorrow. I've seen that y'all got something to do tomorrow, and y'all just did something the other day. So y'all have been busy
And we don't even post half of what we actually are doing. Of course, our clients are pretty private, so we don't, put all of our consulting, but the things that we know when we are raising awareness and going on these platforms, we try to share it so that people can join in the discussion.
Got you. So as I told y'all in the green room that, this is catered to like a singles group. And we spoke about earlier, basically, how oneself is attracted to toxic people. So how does that happen? What type of mental frame that you're in because you are attracted to this type of person that's toxic?
Well, oftentimes it's about familiarity, depending upon how a person grew up, and not to say that all families aren't necessarily toxic or traumatized in some way. But again, sometimes if it's familiar, if it feels familiar, even though it's something bad or might not be the healthiest thing, sometimes you are just attracted to things or people that are toxic. And so if you kind of grew up in an environment where you've seen people arguing or maybe not being able to communicate well, or if there's just always drama, you get comfortable with not being comfortable with peace. You get comfortable with chaos. You get comfortable with, just having drama. And sometimes when you're in a place of peace, it feels like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with this. I need to go back to something that I can connect to. And again, oftentimes, you don't have no business being, in those relationships or in those connections, but it feels familiar and there's safety and familiarity. And so oftentimes you'll find yourself in those relationships constantly until you recognize that there's an issue. And when we say an issue, not necessarily that you judge yourself about it, but you just recognize, like, I keep being in these types of relationships. What do I need to do? Because oftentimes we get in relationships and try to change people. We can't change people. Only you can change yourself. And so often it's about a person recognizing, like, you know what, I keep finding myself. What is it about these type of relationships that I'm drawing myself to? And what do I need to do to not be in these type of relationships moving forward?
Got you. What you got to say about that, Lauren?
Really, I had a lot of what Tiara already said, but when you think about what she said, really is trauma bonding, right? And so initially you connect with somebody because there's familiarity, right? You had this history. Oh, maybe you grew up in a home with an alcoholic father, and I grew up in a home with an alcoholic father. And then you see both of these negative behaviors come together. So initially things can be passionate. Y'all getting along, everything is, rainbows and skittles. And then over time, things, certain behaviors start to manifest you out of that honeymoon stage. And so then you're starting to notice certain patterns and certain behaviors that you both are bringing into the relationship that's starting to explode. A good example of that is that Malcolm and Marie movie that was on Netflix that everybody was talking about. They argued the whole relationship. And so he profited off of her pain and she didn't like it. And so they were hitting below the belt because they had shared all of this trauma about growing up and, her childhood issues, her issues with substance abuse, all of this stuff started to manifest in their relationship where it became very toxic. So that is a prime example of trauma bonding.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean, that was one of the things I was going to. Go ahead, Tiara. Go ahead.
No, I was about to say no. Lauren hit it right on the head, and oftentimes again in those situations, it's that toxicity is that what keeps people together. And again, it's nothing healthy about it. It's nothing positive about it. But again, because you're just so used to and accustomed to that type of chaos, you just kind of stay in there. And for anybody who watched the movie, we saw again an hour and some change of our lives. We watch people fight. And at the end, I was hoping at least from a social work perspective that somebody was going to say, you know what, enough is enough. But no, they battled it out, which I'm sure most people can identify with. You know, there was a period where there was some calm, and they'll probably go back to doing that again 24 hours, 72 hours a week later. And it's just a cycle. And again, somebody has to break it. Otherwise, you will be 60, 70 years old still dealing with that same type of drama.
So my thing is, so how do you, and when you like you said, trauma bonding, you see these flags. So why do you not acknowledge them at the beginning? You just choose to let them pass through and say, hey, that's okay. And then later in life, you decide to acknowledge it. So why does that occur?
So as Tiara said, it's familiarity. You know, if you're used to, I mean, I even have girlfriends who's used to not being treated right. And it's not only through you know, romantic relationships, but growing up, they might have had, you know, a parent who wasn't present, or they've had broken, for some kind of reason, they had broken homes. And so that feeling of not being attached to anything, maybe a certain treatment was shown as love when really it might have been just to soothe something. So over time, you learn how to function in your pain, that pain and those behaviors become a norm. And so once you go through it enough, you will realize like, hey, I had enough. And that's going to come through self-awareness. That's going to come through a person actually realizing that those toxic relationships, those patterns of behaviors that they accept as love are not actually love. And sometimes people are not able to connect what real love is when they see it, because they're used to people treating them a some type of way. I mean, I've even heard girls say how lame men are. The good ones are too lame. They are not street enough. They're not hood enough. They're not hard enough. And really, where does that come from? Now, I know we have our own codes and things in our culture, but really, if they don't have a certain hardness about them or some kind of, and I want to say trauma behaviors. I hate to say it like that, but I am, because this is a mental health platform. So we're just going to label what they are. These, again, are negative patterns and unhealthy patterns of behaviors that show up, and people have adopted them as normal.
And then also sometimes too, like if you don't know yourself and you don't love yourself, you allow people to treat you any type of way. And so oftentimes we'll see when people just I always say that the greatest relationship or predictor of how you are in relationship with others is how you are in relationship with yourself. And so if you don't have boundaries with yourself, if you don't have self-love with yourself, if you don't have forgiveness, if you don't have compassion, all of these things, you not only allow yourself and let yourself down in those ways, you allow other people around you. It could be your mother, your father, your husband, your brother, all of these different people, as Lauren talked about. So this doesn't happen in romantic relationships. If people really were self-aware, you look at all of your patterns of relationship, and I guarantee they will all mirror the same thing of people just not you allowing people to not love you and treat you the right way. But sometimes again, you don't even know how to love yourself the right way. So how can you have an expectation for people to love you the right way when you can't even love yourself the right way because you haven't even taken the time to even figure that out?
Okay. I definitely feel where you're going at, but I'm going to ask this. So, everybody's used to something, but why are people afraid of change?
Because change is scary.
Change is hard.
It's
but
scary, it's hard, it's different, it's out of your norm. As Lauren said, people learn to function in pain. And so, and oftentimes people, they'll rather deal with the devil that they know. That's an old school saying, I think. That I'll rather deal with the devil I know than to take a risk, because taking a risk means something positive could happen, something negative could happen, something neutral could happen, but it's still a risk. And most people are afraid to take risks. So rather than take a risk of maybe getting my heart broken, maybe, me getting in a worse situation, I might as well stick with the situation that I know. I know how to navigate this. I've been dealing with this all of my life. I know I got some coping skills, whether they positive or negative, to help me through these little moments when it is bad. And then, I'll just continue with life and be sort of happy, or just deal with it, opposed to really just jumping out there, having faith for people who are spiritual, and just saying, you know what, I'm just going to do something different. It's hard. It's
Yep.
hard.
Change is hard, but I will say that now that I see the shift in mental health, and I'm seeing, the trend of healing and being healed, is now time for us to start having conversations. I think before we just accepted anything. Um, but I think now, especially with this pandemic, it has forced us to look at ourselves. It has forced us, we can't move, we can't be busy to hide the pain. A lot of times we can't, it was easy to go outside. It was easy to go to work. Your kids had functions. It was easy to go to the gym. You go to the club, you dance your pain away because you got problems, like all of that stuff. It kind of normalized that, hey, I ain't gotta deal with my pain. I can go out to the bar, I can have a drink, I can dance my pain away, forget him, I can go to the club and meet somebody else. And then instead of dealing with what you're going through, you made yourself have another distraction. Another thing is that we don't like to sit in our pain. We don't like to sit in our trauma. We don't like to go back and revisit the things that trigger us. There's a lack of self-awareness. I think with this pandemic of making us have to slow down and look at ourselves and look at how unhealthy we really were mentally in our relationships. I can't remember the statistics right off, but even just the increase in the divorces, the husband and wives who couldn't get along, the family members who couldn't get along, lack of communication within families, all of that plays into your mental health. And so when you're talking about change, we look at ourselves, and we look at ourselves also in the different spaces and environments and the connections that we have. Are these relationships really healthy? Am I really healthy? And so I hope, and I'm trying to be hopeful that this pandemic has really touched a lot of people to have to sit down and think about those things and do some self work. And
And
with
also family work, I would say too, because we have to think about how were these behaviors modeled to us. And if we talk about just even a Black family unit, when we talk about from slavery coming on down through history, how was the family unit modeled to us? And although we do have a lot of families where people did stay together, oftentimes those weren't healthy relationships. I just had a discussion with a group of friends a few days ago, and one of the friends was sharing that she is actually trying to convince her mom to divorce her dad, because she said for years she watched her. She grew up in a two-parent household, both work, both took care of them, but she said it was toxic as you know what. And she said now that she sees relationships different because she's married now, she's a mom. She said she don't want to do anything that her parents ever did as she grew up. And like I said, they provided her with, the best support systems per se when it comes to, making sure your child is clothed, making sure they go to the best schools. But she said when it came from a mental health perspective, as her looking at it through the lens as an adult, she said she literally has spent the last couple of years trying to convince her mother to say, hey, you're still 60 something years old. You still can kind of have a life where you feel free and you don't have to deal with my father's toxic behaviors. And like I said, and that's real. We got to honestly sometimes look at our family and say, hey, how are these behaviors of relationships modeled to me? And it's not to blame a point or even shame our families, but we got to be real and have these real courageous conversations. We have to have honest conversations and say, although they did that or they used that blueprint, I want to do something different in my relationships. I want to do something different in my marriage. I want to do something different with the people I'm dating. So we got to look at that too.
Yeah, that's a good point, Tiara, because you're touching on generational patterns, and
Mm-hmm.
another reason why people can't change is because people just don't know what they don't know,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
people are only taught what they know and what they're used to and what was passed down. So, you know, again, we see these different cliches about being generational curse breakers and things like that. You know, we talking about intergenerational trauma and trauma that's passed down through generations. So if my grandmother did it, then my mother doing it, I'm doing it, and now it's manifesting in what I do. And so people don't know what they
They
don't
don't
know
know.
until they are made aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That is definitely true right there. But I definitely wanted to say, something that you had, touched on, T, that you had touched on. So
Mm-hmm.
now we come to an aspect where as though some women want the traditional way of marriage, which your grandfather and your great grandfather gave, where he worked every day, and
Mm-hmm.
now society does not allow us to have that traditional now, and some women feel like it's a little difficult, or and some men don't work as well, and women take care of these whole households. So
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a mixed array because you want that, but you don't get it. So how does that work out when you saying I don't want modern, I want traditional, but modern has to be the case?
I mean, communication is the key to all relationships. And so, again, it's with whomever you have to do what works for your relationship. But a part of that is going to be communicating and just always being open and upfront before you go all the way deep into a relationship. These are the discussions that people just have to have, period, about how you feel about family, how you feel about rearing children, mental health, history. All of those things play a major impact. But again, I think the key is just really people just talking to each other and saying, hey, I grew up and my grandparents are still together 90 years later. That's what I want and desire. However, I am a woman who's working and making my money and booked and busy and all these things. I want that too. So again, it's about compromise. It's about communication. It's about being flexible. It's about allowing people to grow, not trying to change people. Also, just standing up for yourself. If you feel like something doesn't work for you, you have to make a decision and say, well, maybe this relationship isn't for me. And it doesn't say anything wrong about that person, but that this might not be what you need. But oftentimes, men and women do this. We will know in our gut that something's just not for us, but we will continue to go down that road. And then we're upset because the person isn't changing or, all of these different things. When in the beginning, you have these discussions and you make these decisions to say, is this something that I'm willing to change, be flexible on in my thinking, to possibly not get what I want if it's a traditional relationship. But you have to do that in the beginning, and it has to be a constant topic that you're constantly talking about with your mate. Otherwise, you do go down that slippery road of, you know, the arguments and you not doing what I want you to do, and you said you was going to do this and all of those type of things. You're disappointed, but why be disappointed when you knew up front that that person didn't want what you want? So why go
Gotcha.
down that road?
I definitely had that. You got something to say about that, Lauren?
Um, she touched on a lot, but I was just going to say again, with that communication, it's really just setting your expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like setting the expectations of what it is. I've always hearing, people talk about, well, this is what I wanted, and I really feel like it plays into a woman's self-esteem and sense of self-worth when she's not getting that. So from a mental health perspective, it women begin to question who they are. They begin to question their greatness because they have expectations. They set expectations for themselves. And because of these different dynamics that's playing out, they end up settling. They end up feeling like maybe they're not worth as much as they think they are because they're not finding the right person who can meet those expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Got you. So this is one of the things that we touched on earlier, and not touched on earlier, but it seems been in the news the last couple weeks. It's like, what is the mental aspect of men being upset with Russell Wilson?
Well, again, that comes from a generational thing. And again, and we can speak to the American community. Again, we have been socialized, we have been taught that men are supposed to be a certain way in our community. And so anything that veers off from that, toughness, that, as Lauren talked about, masculine and all of those things, what is the word that people are using? A simp or something? I just learned what that means. Something and another.
Simp, yes, a simp, yes.
That's new.
Yes, a
But
simp.
so I just learned what that means. I had to look it up. But we will, again, kind of demonize or shame those Russell Wilson type of men. And again, those are actually the ones who, when Lauren talked about women have expectations, if you go down the list, that's who I would probably match up with the list. But when they get with what Russell Wilson, then they want Future.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with, if that's what you want and if that's what you like, go for it. But again, you have to be clear. That's why I said it's all about self-awareness. It's all about truly knowing what you want and asking for what you want. Because again, your whole list will be Russell Wilson. But like I said, you wind up wanting to connect back with those Future type guys. And so yeah, but yeah, it truly has a lot to do with, again, just going way back, how we have socialized black men how they should be. And so, again, we don't allow you, and when I say we, not me and Lauren, but as a culture,
I
we
got you.
oftentimes don't allow black men to be vulnerable. We don't allow them to be, all the things, and it's a balance. It doesn't make you weak, but we just haven't allowed you as a culture to be that. So you always feel like you gotta be, I'm so manly, I'm so tough, which is why a lot of black men are also engaging in mental health and wellness, because for so long y'all had to hold all the crap in. And at some point you're going to explode, so we have to again shift how we see black men as in a culture, support you guys, but also support you when you do want to be vulnerable, and let you know that that's okay. Create these spaces that black men can be vulnerable and at the same time be protective. You can be masculine, you can beat your chest, you can do all those things. Sometimes we live in a either or type of a world, and I love to live in the both and world. Why can't you be both? Why can't you be both sentimental? Why can't you be vulnerable? Why can't you be loving and caressing of your woman, and then also at the same time be ready to go ham if somebody come and try to come against the family unit? So both and instead of either or is my thing.
Yep. And I think you touched on a lot of great points, Tierra, and I probably couldn't even said it better. But even what I was thinking when you were talking is that it adds to the stigma of mental health. It adds to the stigma about why Black men don't want to seek help for their issues. It adds to the stigma of, again, when you're demonizing and when you're trying to shame somebody for being able to be self-aware and tap into the places that they hurt, that they're in pain. A lot of times men are in pain, but it's going to come out as them being angry. It's going to come out with them ready to fight. It comes out as aggressive, And you say, oh, that's just an angry Black man, or he just angry. He's always in trouble. No, underneath of that is more vulnerability. It's feelings of shame. It's feelings of guilt. It's hurt. Sadness. It's depression. It's hurt. That they don't feel comfortable because, again, men are not supposed to cry. You getting punched in your chest to see how tough you are when you growing up, or if you're growing up in a single mom, a single home, and women have made young boys, oh, you got to be the man of the house. And so very early on you learn that you got to be tough, you can't be vulnerable, you can't cry. And so as we continue to carry this on as a culture, then we're going to continue to have these broken Black men. And it's going to show up in your relationships. It's going to show up in how you deal with men. So for the people out here listening who's saying, hey, I don't want this trauma bond, I want this traditional thing, I want this good Black man. Well, allow that good Black man to be healed. Let him process through his pain. Don't demonize him, call him a simp, feel like he's all these things. I just learned that word today too. So don't say he's all of these things, but you want somebody to come to the table whole. You want
Mm-hmm.
somebody to be able to provide and do all these things for you, but on the other hand, you still put this stigma and this shame on him because he wants to process, or he's trying to work through the things that have hurt him, the
Mm-hmm.
things that he's traumatized from. Like, healthy relationships are healed relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy relationships is where two people, not saying that you got it all together when you come together, but two people who are committed to healing, two people who are committed to letting go a lot of that baggage, people who are committed to breaking cycles and patterns of toxic and unhealthy behaviors. That's how you connect and have healthy whole relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not that people haven't experienced some traumas and some pain in their lifetime, but you're not going to let it impact how you move. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to let it come against you. Do you let it come be a barrier for your own success when it comes to your career?
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to how your child, you're rearing your children, how you're raising your children, you got to think about all of those things. But in order to have healthy relationships, both people have to be committed to a healing process individually and
Mm-hmm.
then together.
And then as a
Got
village,
you.
we just have to support everybody. And like I said, especially our black men. Because again, we do want you guys to be able to be that for our communities. But we got to give you that space to grow. We got to give you grace to grow. And if we're not giving you grace to grow, then of course you're gonna always want to turn away from the symbol that maybe Russell presents, because again, we constantly will beat that man down for just being a good-hearted, compassionate black man who's trying to take care of his family. And it's not to say he don't have flaws, because I'm sure he do. In all
Mm.
relationships, we show up with our best selves, but we also show up with our baggage too, the two BBs, best selves and baggage. But at the same time, that relationship, and I don't know, we don't know them personally, but I would assume in that relationship, Sierra has allowed him to be. And that's what we need to allow men to be. And like I said, be both, and be vulnerable, be strong, cry if you need to, but show some joy and some happiness. Because again, you're also modeling this for other younger black men. And so again, how do we break cycles, or how do we change the narrative of that it's okay to be a Russell, if again we're not allowing people like yourself, I'm sure, and other black men to have that space to navigate that, and not feel ridiculed.
I get that. I get that. Now you say ridicule. So why is it that our culture feel as though like that's our counterpart culture to go to therapy and we don't do therapy? So what is the stigma with that? Like we don't do it. We feel as though it makes us weird if we go do therapy. Why does that happen?
Because historically, Black people didn't go to therapy. We had this, and again, it comes from slavery. It comes from everything that we've gone through, as Black people, as a race, especially Black Americans, is
Mm-hmm.
that number one, we didn't do it. What happens in this house stays in this house. You don't take anything out of this house. Whatever happens, we don't talk about it. Another thing is that if you went to therapy, you were crazy, right? There's nothing
Right.
wrong with me. I'm crazy. If you sought help, you were crazy. And we have since been educating people and learning that mental health is something that we all have, because we are mind, body, spirit, right? And so our minds are connected to our spirit, is something that we have to keep intact.
Mm-hmm.
So mental health is not the absence of mental illness. It's something that we all have, is how we cope with life stressors and those sort of things. But historically, also, a lot of these evidence-based practices that we have adopted were always for white men or upper or middle class Caucasian people, other races. It was never geared toward us. And so therapy has since evolved, where we have more evidence-based practices and more push to be more culturally competent, culturally inclusive of other races, other cultures. And so
Mm-hmm.
we are moving. We have more Black clinicians. We have, Black psychologists and Black psychiatrists who understand our issues. They understand our trauma, not just, within our families, but as a race. All of the social injustices that we've been looking at in the news, the police brutality, Just even the high numbers of substance abuse and things that happen in our community, all of the psychosocial factors that only impact Black communities. We are now incorporating and understanding all of that within a mental health dynamic. So historically, it wasn't ever for us. And then we also had some onus in that because of how we train ourselves and we train our children to not seek help, that when things happen, you keep it on a hush, or you took it to the pastor in the church and the pastor dealt with the issues. You dealt with it in your community or just in your home, and we never sought help. And then therapists didn't look like us either. So then, of course, when you think about everything we went through with segregation and all of that stuff, we didn't have a lot of us back then, and a lot of people that we could open up to who could understand, what was happening and what we were going through.
And then also you got to think too, historically, oftentimes people profit off of Black people's pain. And so if there were some resources or if there were some access, oftentimes the trust was probably broken because you were going to this place or these places to seek help, and you were either abused while you were getting help, or just not really getting the type of services that you need for many different reasons. And so again, that creates a barrier in your mind, like, okay, I tried it, this didn't work, I'm not doing this ever again. And again, what Lauren talked about with not seeing people who look like you, people who understand you, treatments that are kind of sometimes based in more whiteness, opposed to again being more culturally appropriate for maybe the African American client. All of those things play a role. But again, there's a huge shift. And again, the pandemic has definitely brought a lot of hurt and pain and grief, but it has also brought an opportunity of a tipping point in life. And we know that tipping points only happen but so often, but when they do happen, it causes a great shift. And so we see people who are now and again, because they don't have no choice but to sit with themselves, to really say, you know what? It is okay to seek help. It is okay not to be okay. It is okay to talk about my feelings. It is okay to pray and to go have a therapist. It is okay to do all of these things. And like I said, because we do have a lot more African American clinicians or Black and brown people of color who are sitting in the spaces such as Lauren and myself sit in when it comes to mental health, I think it's definitely breaking down that barrier, breaking down the stigma. We still have a long way to go, but people are definitely a lot more open to it now.
Right. You definitely do. But no, Ava, I'm speaking of Ava, she's commenting right now. We got some time if you need to ask the question. But I want to know, some of our celebrities, athletes, a lot of people that's rich, I should say. They say money can't make you happy, but at the end of the day, a lot of them have depression. What causes their depression?
Again,
a lot.
To your point. Yeah, and I was about to say, to your point, you can have a lot of money, but money does not equate to happiness. It doesn't equate to joy. It doesn't equate to being healed. And so again, just because you have all this money, you're able to just cover it. You're able to mask it. And that's what most people do. The richest of the richest to the poorest of the poorest. We know how to dress ourselves up, put our makeup on, put our Jordans on. We know how to make pain look good. That's what we do. And that's again we keep talking back to slavery, but again, we have to start framing our brain to understand what was the blueprint of all of this. That's how you begin to understand how we get here now. So again, that's kind of what we did. Although we were going through a lot of pain, we know how to dress it up. And that's the same with stars. They just have money to hide it. But again, it could be biological stuff. It could be a combination of sometimes they're thrust into worlds that they truly aren't prepared to be thrust into, or they start to see people for who they are. Sometimes, when you think people are your friends or even your family, so all of these things kind of play a role. And if you already weren't engaging in mental health practices that support, you just taking care of your mind, taking care of your body, and taking care of your spirit already, or you already engage in activities like drinking excessively or sexing excessively or whatever you do excessively to kind of numb that.
Numb it.
You just got more money to numb whatever you're doing, and so again, and then if you have a lot of yes people around, oftentimes you may not have people who say, you know what, bro, like, you being a little reckless, or I'm noticing your
Right.
spirit or your energy isn't good, because again, you might have surrounded yourself with people who just aren't true or honest enough with you to say, hey, I'm worried about you. It's okay, you're in a safe space, but I think you need to go get some help.
And mental illness has no respect of persons. I always say
Mm-hmm.
that because mental illness can be genetic, it can be passed down, and so you just never know if that celebrity has parents or grandparents who suffered themselves with depression or with anxiety or bipolar. Again, their success has masked that maybe they were dealing with something before they got into the limelight. You know what I mean? So because you have money, because you're rich, it doesn't matter when it comes to mental illness. We can look at Kate Spade. Kate Spade was rich, had her handbags, but then at the end of the day, she had a suicide note. And that's how she,
Right.
left this earth. We know a
Same as
lot of
Heath Ledger.
successful people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A lot of them. Yep, a
Yep.
lot of them
So I mean, again, you in the limelight, but then when the lights, camera,
go
and the
down.
action go down, you're left to deal with you. And that's
Mm-hmm.
why it's
All right.
important that again, you can't sex your way out of it, you can't drug your way out of it, you
Party
can't
away.
party and buy all the name brand labels that you want, because at the end of the day, you only left with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to be healed. You got to find a way to deal with it. You got to take medication if you need to, all of that stuff. And again, celebrities only going to let you know but so much about them. But
Mm-hmm.
that's why we got to be careful not to put people on a pedestal, because at the end of the day, they hurt. They're human, so they
Mm-hmm.
hurt like
Right.
we hurt. They have life experiences like we have. They're not exempt from any kind of life stresses. They might feel it more than we do because they have
More
so many
pressure.
eyes on them and more
Mm-hmm.
pressure. But we they're human, and so they're
Mm-hmm.
not exempt from having mental health challenges either.
Right. Well, just speaking of not being a celebrity, just like we grew up together. So how could I speak to someone that has that mental health problems like depression? How can I speak to them? Is there a certain way I need to talk to them? What ways can I find out, to get to uplift their spirits and not go that route like suicide knows as Kate Spade or Heath Ledger knows an OD as Heath Ledger.
So, I mean, relationships is the key to any and everything. And so, oftentimes, people are more receptive when they do feel a connection and a bond, because relationships help you to have those hard conversations. You know what I mean? And
Right.
so, it's about you just being supportive, connecting beyond text messaging sometimes. Because again, I can be happy with my phone, send some emojis and all of that, and be in a whole
Mm-hmm.
bedrobe crying, been in the bed for like 20 days and you wouldn't know. And so it's just those small things that you don't necessarily have to be like a clinical person, but you make sure you just maintain relationships, you check in with people, you talk, you listen more than you talk, because oftentimes we want to give people advice, but sometimes people just want somebody to be able to listen to them and not judge them. So, and even having empathy, and sometimes we mistake empathy with sympathy. Sympathy is when I feel sorry for you. Empathy is me, maybe I don't get it. Maybe I don't understand why you want to hurt yourself or harm yourself, or you're not getting out the bed, or you don't feel like taking care of your child today. I don't get that. But the empathy allows me to go inside a space where I can connect with you, to understand you to a point to say, whatever it is you're hurting, and I'm going to be here
Mm-hmm.
for you no matter what, without judgment, showing lots of compassion. That's how you talk to someone with any type of mental illness for the most part. It's all about compassion and understanding, because again, unless that is your lived experience, you're not going to always get it. But you can get just showing love, compassion, being encouraging, giving them information, familiarizing yourself with just basic resources, whether it's a crisis hotline or connections in the community. All of those types of things are ways you can support without even wearing a clinical hat, because sometimes people are like, I'm not a clinician, I don't know what to do. It's just basic human skills before you even put on a clinical hat. It's how you connect and just really support a person.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that I definitely dig that, but being in the United States, y'all should know the number. I mean, y'all clinicians and y'all study this, deeper than I do, but the number one problem in the United States is anxiety disorders.
Hmm.
So what forces people to go, to have that, like, nearly like 10 million or maybe more Americans have this, like, what is the issue that pushes them to this route?
Mhm. So I always say anxiety is really about just having a lack of control. A lot of people, depending on different stressors or things that they have going on, they don't have control over it. So anxiety is just like constant worry. Since the pandemic started, we've definitely seen an increase in anxiety, where people, it's just uncertainty. And so people are constantly worried about what's going to happen, what's next. They don't feel in control. That's what I would say a lot of anxiety comes from. And some anxiety could be, again, genetic, where you just have anxiety disorders. You're overly worried about everything. It could come from trauma. So it's part of that fight, flight, freeze piece where, my body alarm is telling me something else. So depending on my life experience, my brain is wired a certain type of way, and so I'm interpreting a message, or I'm interpreting some kind of stimuli or environmental thing as danger. So that constantly keeps me aroused, hyper aroused. And so it could be a combination of any of those things: trauma, just uncertainty, constant worry, of things that you can't control.
Okay, so all of these things that we spoke about, as far as, trauma bonding, anxiety, is like, what will be the way to heal these? Would it constant talking, or would it be like medication? Like, which way would you go with this?
It depends. Like treatment looks different for everyone. Again, it's all about not just noticing that these things are happening to you, but once you notice it, trying to figure out what will be best for you. And so often it's just kind of reaching out to a professional, and they're all different types of professionals. Lauren and I are licensed clinical social workers. You have people now who do a little bit more in the holistic realm, so with the Reikis and all of those types of things. Then you have like your traditional clinical psychologists and psychiatrists. And so again, it's just more about you figuring out the type of service you think you want to engage in, and having a discussion, and really being courageous when you do have the discussion with these professionals and honest about what's been going on, because they will work collaboratively with you to figure out what you need. And sometimes you could just do some talk therapy. Sometimes they could give you a treatment plan, or you can work out a treatment plan where you're walking more outside and you're doing some deep breathing, and maybe you're going to yoga. But then sometimes it may be some more intensive type of therapy that you need that might include some medication. But again, it's all about communication, it's all about advocating for yourself. And it's all about just being open and flexible and just receiving information. And then, like I said, at the end of the day, people have to make the best choice for them. But it's all about, again, just initiating, talking to a professional and helping them help you, because it's the client is the one honestly in control, not the therapist. The client is the one who's the historian of their life. They're the one who knows what they need, but they just have to be able to advocate, and that professional will then kind of help them, guide them with whatever they may need. And sometimes it's a combination of both. So, it just depends, honestly. But it's not something that people, especially Black people, should be afraid of, or they should be fearful of. And again, you ask a lot of questions. You ask till you can't ask no more, until it feels right, and you say, okay, that's what I need.
Hold on, before you answer this. Someone said they got difficulty sleeping, but someone said they take valerian root. Is
Hmm.
that a way to figure it out? The sleep?
I mean, like I said, a lot of people are definitely engaging into more holistic practices.
Mhm.
And so again, if that's something that you're connecting with someone with, you find that it works. If it's healthy, if you find that it works, again, we definitely support, kind of what works. And like I said, there isn't just one way to do mental health. And again, I think traditionally, that was the thought, like you go see a doctor, they putting you on some medication. Absolutely not, because everything doesn't need to be medicated. Or like I
Mhm.
said, there's so many different treatments these days that are holistic and more, just different. Whatever you find that works can definitely support sleeping problems, anxiety problems, and other
Mhm.
challenges that people have. So,
And I know a lot of psychiatrists now are prescribing medicinal marijuana for people with
mhm.
anxiety. It has been proven that medicinal marijuana, again, I'm gonna say medicinal, not like you buy on the street, because like right now they are lacing a lot of the marijuana with fentanyl, and I have seen some severe cases, especially among the 20-some-year-olds who are getting psychotic disorders because of they are lacing the marijuana with fentanyl, and people are not getting the natural weed like they think they are
Right.
getting.
Mhm.
But psychiatrists, I have seen that they're given like a medicinal card for marijuana. I know that that has helped with some anxiety. I
Mhm.
Well,
would
is this with
definitely
the CB? This is with the CBD?
think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Well, what I want to ask you, because we got a couple of minutes left, so I know I can't break HIPAA laws at all, and I don't want to break HIPAA laws because I know you women too well from years, and I don't want your husbands coming down on me, and I don't want to pay no mortgages or any things like that. But I definitely want to ask is like, how, like, when you come up with these, when you get these cases,
Mhm.
how involved, I mean, I know you get involved because of your work, but how really involved do you really get? Is there like a woman, I mean, a girl or man or woman or a boy that you kind of just get involved in a little more indulged in, I should say? But you're still in lines of your practice. Like, does your feelings sometimes take over, as I should say?
Oh, so we have to, we have had to train ourselves to have boundaries when it
Mhm.
comes to clients, because it is very easy, and I'm gonna be honest, it's easy to, because we're compassionate, because we're empaths in a way,
Yep.
it is very easy to get involved. Over the years, we have, vicarious trauma, secondary trauma, those type of things that mental health clinicians and people on the front lines deal with. We have had to learn how to maintain boundaries, not get enmeshed in different cases, and learn how to do our work. That is a skill set, because, I have seen, the board of shame,
Mhm.
where social workers have crossed boundary lines. And if
Hmm.
you're not careful, you will get your license taken away. Or if you're a counselor, you will get your license taken away, because people have not been able to separate
Mhm.
from, getting too involved. And that could be a lot because clinicians are traumatized too. Clinicians have their own histories. And if they don't deal with it, it can show up in different dynamics in the working relationship. So it is important that we don't get overly involved. I personally do not. I do my job to the best of my ability, but at the end of the day, I know when I need to cut off and I need to put boundaries in place. So that
Mhm.
might be that, I can't answer phone calls after a certain time from people. I won't respond to text messages at any time. I won't, send out emails or be at somebody's every beck and call, because they have to understand that, we build therapeutic relationships, but I'm your therapist. I'm not your friend. I don't do therapy anymore, but when I was like, I'm not your friend. You can't pick up the phone and call me every time you're on crisis, because we want to empower our clients. You want to empower them to be independent, self-sufficient, connect with their own resources and supports outside of the therapy realm.
And
Got
then
you.
when you're talking about just helping in general, whether it's our field or just a person who helps, I always operate from a transformational, which kind of goes into what Lauren just talked about. I don't want to ever feel like I have power over someone. We are here to help people heal themselves. We give strategies, we give tools. And so, with that understanding, we maintain those boundaries that there has to be a cutoff. Otherwise, you do get yourself in mess and you do find yourself, in trouble with the code of ethics and those types of things. But when you're going into any type of situation where it's more transactional and you want to change people and you want to do this and you want to do that for people, social work in the helping field in general is not about doing things for people, it's doing things with people. So if I'm doing
Mm-hmm.
things with you, again, I am promoting transformation, but I'm also assisting you with the tools so that when I cut my phone off at 3 or 5 and not answering emails, you have the skill set to be able to still thrive whether I'm there or not. And again, it does take, like Lauren said, a skill set of knowing boundaries, knowing to cut things off, and not cut things off where you're like mean or, don't want to deal with people. But again, we also have to make sure that we are maintaining our own lives. We are moms, we are business women, we are mothers, we are sisters, we are all of these things. And if we give too much of ourselves to others, what do we have to get back to ourselves or to the people that we are also responsible for? So we definitely have to have a good balance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the next thing I was going to ask. Like, how do you get back to yourself? But I guess you just answered it. And someone said pets are supposed to reduce stress, but my daughter's cat gets on my fucking nerves. Like, I mean, hey, but okay, we got another question. How would one cope? How would one cope if you don't have any coping mechanisms?
So is it that you don't have them or you just tried some things that haven't worked? Would be
It
my
just says
question.
it just said how would one cope if you don't have any coping mechanisms?
I
And
mean, well, everybody has coping mechanisms, whether they're healthy or not is the thing. So we all cope somehow, whether, like I said, you breathing or you punching a wall or you taking a sip of something or you reading your Bible. We all cope in some form of way. But again, it's just really about getting to know you. That's what I talked about earlier. You got to get to know yourself. You got to figure out what your love language is. We talk about we want other people to know our love language. Do you know your love language? Do you know
ooh,
what you need? Or and are you
Mm-hmm.
giving yourself your love language first before you're even promoting or asking somebody to give something, like I said, that you can't even give to yourself or you don't even know? So once you start to understand yourself on that level, then you can truly dig into what coping skills work and what don't work. Like I have some people who I tell them to breathe and they're like, Miss Tierra, breathe for what? But they are into, maybe getting massage because touch might be for them, or they
right.
may enjoy, music therapy, whatever it is it may be. But again, you have to get to know yourself. So I say start there. Do the
Mm-hmm.
love language test. Understand who you are, what you need, what you want, and start loving on yourself in that way. And then you can kind of build your skill set around what coping skills really work for you and what don't work for you.
Yep. And Tiara and I do a lot of training around emotional intelligence. And that coping piece is really around self regulation. But in order for you to even have some coping skills, you got to identify why, like, what is going on? Like, what emotions am I feeling? What's my
Mm-hmm.
triggers? And then once you're able to identify that, then you can start thinking about what is going to work for me when I feel this way, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
triggered in this manner. This is what helps me feel better.
Yep.
Oh, that is beautiful. I just love how that was said. Can I get a pet dog? What the hell? Can I get a pet dog? What?
But
But
again,
there,
that is
there, there are therapeutic
therapy.
animals. There is a such thing. I forgot the actual name of it, but it is a pet therapy. And there are animals who can be approved to be therapeutic pets.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen it come across in a clinic that, now I've seen a couple people bring me a pit bull or say, can I sign for their pit bull to be a therapeutic pet? Because it couldn't be, no, we're not doing that. But there are ways that certain pets can be approved as a therapeutic pet. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what the person is asking.
And even if it's not approved, again, a lot of people do connect with their animals. I have an eighth grader that I work with. His hamster, he got a hamster a couple of months ago, and it's been the best thing that saved his life basically because he suffers from anxiety. And he was able to connect as a 14-year-old that animal has kind of helped with his anxiety. So even if you don't get it officially approved, like I said, some animals you may want to be careful. Like I don't know if a snake would be therapeutic, but I don't know. For some people it might be. But yes, animals can be therapeutic because again, it's a way to connect. And if sometimes you have difficulty or for whatever reason connecting with humans, pets are often able to kind of give you that as well and kind of soothe and do all those wonderful therapeutic things too.
Yeah,
So
because pets give a lot of attention. They are very needy.
they're
And
loyal.
so they, yeah, so I can see, a lot of people do see their pets as therapeutic.
Mm-hmm.
I got you. You know I love you two ladies, right? We go way back. You know I love y'all. You know I love, I mean, if I could really go back and tell a story, not what Lauren said about my third grade Ninja Turtle party, but we come through high school together, Dunbar Poets,
Mm-hmm.
PPO3, and we gotta get out of here. But as always, thank y'all for doing what y'all did for me. But we need to know, how can anybody reach you? What's your social media handles, your websites? I know y'all got all of it. I know all that, but tell the viewers.
Okay, you can connect with us. Tap into our website is www.keysofhopeconsultants.com. If you want to email us, you can email us at info@keysofhopeconsultants.com. You can follow us on Instagram, Keys of Hope Consultants, as well as Facebook as Keys of Hope Consultants.
Got you. If y'all can't remember none of that, y'all can just, hit me, and I can definitely direct you to these lovely ladies. These are my sisters right here. What are you Hold on. Somebody asked a question before we go.
Oh Lord.
Are there, I'm looking at, are there emotional support women?
Well,
So we just went over the whole trauma bonding. I would be very leery of somebody who's going to provide you emotional support. You need a therapist and not a woman
yes.
to be your emotional support. You need somebody trained to help you process through your emotions.
Yes, yes, yes.
I, I love my fans, and Brother For Real just said they already married or they lesbians. Like, what? But at the end of the day, myself, Rod, for Keys of Hope Consulting LLC, Miss Tiara, Miss Lauren, my sisters that I went to high school with. If you didn't catch their handles, you can, it's called a white. What the hell are they talking about? But you can, follow their handles. You can reach out to me, and I can definitely, give you their information. Because at the end of the day, we all need somebody to help us out, talk to,
Yep.
whether it's family, friends, or whatever. I might sign up, myself, because I'm going through some trauma myself. And as one of my good buddies told me last night, he said, yo, I just had to take a trip. I had to get away from everything just to bring my sanity back.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
Yep. And I do want to say the big thing too, because some people not ready for therapy, but there's a lot of life coaches out here too. Now they really can't dig into trauma, but if you willing just to pay and I have that, hey, I had to go see a therapist. There are some really good life coaches out there that if you're stuck and you just need a little to help you get through maybe a tough time, I would say you can also connect with a life coach.
Yep. So there are
got you.
all
So
types of means of help out here. There are
Yep.
all types of means.
You
got
know,
you.
the Real
Just go get the
Housewives,
help.
that's what they all do.
No,
They
but
go
I
see
want to
coaches.
ask y'all that. I want to ask y'all that before we go. I want to ask y'all that before we go, because I'm burned for another 2 minutes. So perception versus reality. We got a lot of people that they look at these housewife shows that you just mentioned, and they feel as that's like relationship goals. Like, is that some type of toxic bonding as well, or no?
And then you gotta realize,
Trauma
like,
bonding. I'm sorry.
yeah, but that's all for TV. So you gotta realize a lot of the stuff that you're watching is still scripted. They're doing it for views. So when you think about in terms of like this real reality, it's not reality. They're still acting. It's aspects of their life that might be, true, but it's also very embellished for the ratings.
And then also with any relationship, whether it's on TV or not, I mean, it takes hard work, whether you're married or you're in a platonic relationship. Like, it's hard work. So yes, they make it cute on TV, and sometimes they do be a little bit raw. But at the end of the day, like, relationships in general just take hard work. So you take it with a grain of salt. You take it for entertainment. You may see something that you like, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for you and your situation, and it don't necessarily need to be tied to what you see on the TV, because most likely it's not real at all.
And connect with your own reality, because TV have a lot of people messed up.
Mm-hmm.
They aspire to be something that they see on TV. They want to, be Cardi B's and have WAP and all of that stuff. But at the end of the day, like, Even when her song came out, how she don't cook and clean, but she still have none of that is like real.
Do
And
y'all
she,
cook and clean? Because y'all both got rings.
I cook
yes.
and I clean, and I'm
Yes.
still a businesswoman. Yes. I don't want no
Yes.
dirty house. Do
It's
I need help every
absolutely.
once in a while? Yes. But yeah.
Yep.
Listen. I know y'all, so I'm like, this is like me talking to my sisters right here easily. This is so easy for
Mhm.
me at all, but definitely, we're going to get up out of here because I know I need to get some mental health myself this weekend. I've been trapped in this damn house since January 2020.
Oh
I got to
yeah.
go. I
Yeah.
need to go to the beach or something and just see some water and just relieve myself
I'm
for a
with you.
Go for
second.
it. Go
I'm
for
with
it.
you.
Go
I'm gonna
for
be
it.
right with you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I got to get out of here. So one of the things, I know I said we had to leave, but one of the things I read in a magazine was saying that a lot of single people, they're having the most traumatizing time with this pandemic because they live by themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do we get through it? And this is the last question. How do we get through it? Being by ourselves through the last 11 months.
I
I would
mean,
say,
oh,
go
go
ahead.
ahead, Lauren.
I was just gonna say, find ways to stay connected. Being
Mm-hmm.
socially distant doesn't mean that you can't have connection with other people.
Mm-hmm.
We have platforms such as this. You can still get together in small spaces as long as people are comfortable with it. More people are getting the vaccination. More people are getting tested. So I would just say, like, social distancing does not mean social isolation. We have found creative ways over this past year to be connected.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just say stay connected as much as possible.
But then also don't be afraid to take in those moments of sitting with yourself, because again, this will probably be the only time, because you have to really learn about yourself, so that when you do start connecting back with people, you're connecting at your best level and not, the fake level or some mechanical level. Like, so, stay connected, but also don't be afraid of time of peace, time of getting to know yourself. Like I said, your love language, picking up a new trade, a new activity or something. Like, be comfortable with also just learning about yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Find a balance.
Totally agree with you. Where y'all gonna be at tomorrow? Just in case somebody want to look at you, because I know y'all got something going on tomorrow. I already know, but where y'all gonna be at tomorrow?
Okay, so every year we do it's a mother and son summit worldwide, and so this is our fourth year participating. It's a event that's typically for mothers and sons, but it has expanded to the whole family. And so this is a celebration of the Black family. Is a virtual conversation about how families can pretty much heal together. They can find joy even during this time as the unit. So we're going to be talking tomorrow on a virtual platform about keeping the Black family intact, and the importance of
Communication,
communication, resolving
connecting.
conflict and families, all of that stuff.
Okay. I mean,
We'll be
is it a
doing
specific
tomorrow.
time? Where can they find? It's virtual, so where can they find you at tomorrow? Because I know they're gonna look for you.
Mhm.
Okay, if they can go on the Mother and Son Summit Worldwide on Facebook, it starts at 7 p.m. tomorrow on Facebook Live. Mother and
7 p.m.
Sons,
Eastern time, right?
yep,
Yes.
Eastern
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Standard Time. I'm looking at the flyer now. But yes, is Moms Talking Business, Life and Motherhood, Mom Talk. Again, it's Mother and Sons Worldwide Facebook page, and it starts at 7 p.m. Eastern
Mm-hmm.
Time.
Okay, that's beautiful. But we're gonna wrap this show up. Myself, Rod. This is Amsterdam Talk with the keys of Hope Consultant, Miss Tiara, Miss Lauren, my childhood friends. Look out. I mean, if you need some help, come talk to them. Do not ask about my childhood if you go talk to them.
I
So we're gonna keep
won't. We social workers. We have
Yep.
confidentiality.
Our lips are
Can't say
zipped.
nothing.
we're gonna keep it just like that. But thank y'all for coming through, man. Thank
Thank you for
y'all.
having us.
All
Thank you
right,
for
thank
Look,
having
you.
us.
listen, I'm definitely gonna bring y'all back, because I feel it's like so much more we can touch, you know, just for the Black community itself. So
Of course,
definitely
of
got to
course.
bring y'all back when y'all have time, because I know y'all got some busy schedules.
Yep, just
Well,
let us know.
Yeah, we'll be back.
Yep.
Oh, okay. So next week, I got some real estate agents in the house next week, coming from the East Coast, the dirty South, the West Coast, and the North, teaching you if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. But tomorrow you can check into the Velvet Room. I think it's the Velvet Room tomorrow, Dating Over 40 on the same network. I'm out of here.